вечер, коллеги, друзья, партнеры. Всем добрый вечер еще раз. Мы рады вас приветствовать. У нас сегодня с вами онлайн-дискуссия, которую мы организовали совместно с Фондом Навстречу переменам и импакт-хабом в рамках нашей программы подготовки социальных предпринимателей ко встрече с инвесторами, которые потенциально готовы инвестировать в проекты, которые реализуют не только инвестиционную историю, но и оказывают социальные воздействия, и мы рады вас приветствовать. У нас в Москве замечательная погода, я надеюсь, что у коллег в Италии тоже, потому что сентябрь теплый нас всех радует. Нам очень хочется, чтобы вы получили удовольствие от дискуссии. Соответственно, позвольте мне представить участников нашей панельной дискуссии и озвучить вам некое понимание того, как будем мы сегодня с вами беседовать и общаться, чтобы у всех было некое представление о том, что будет предметом дискуссии и как это будет происходить. С нами Татьяна Бурмистрова, она в попечительском совете Фонда Навстречу переменам, который является партнером программы «Навстречу импакт-инвестиции». Татьяна, мы рады вас приветствовать. С нами Люка. Люка является руководителем фонда инвестиционного, который практикует импакт-инвестиции и действительно имеет перед собой несколько историй, о которых он нам сегодня расскажет и поделится своим опытом, почему, собственно, ему, как профессиональному финансисту, стала близка тема импакт-инвестиций. Люка, мы рады вас приветствовать с нами. С нами Фредерика. Фредерика, если я правильно понимаю, как раз является одним из тех успешных проектов, который, собственно говоря, и был объект импакт-инвестиций. И нам очень хочется узнать, как у Фредерика это получилось, и что случилось с ним, как получилось это замечательное исключение импакта, развиваются проекты, будем очень рады услышать о вашем опыте. Фредерика, рады вас приветствовать.
Ciao, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me.
С нами также Никита. Никита является директором проекта «Урбиратор», который на российском рынке, наверное, один из немногих, который точно так же является историей, связанной с привлечением импакт-инвестиций, и Никиту мы пригласили, чтобы он поделился своим опытом, чтобы у нас была с вами возможность, коллеги, понаблюдать, как отличается.
Also see how this experience differs in Italy and so we wanted to see maybe the differences between the Russian impact investment market and the Italian market. We're very happy to see you. Hi, everyone. We also have our information partner with us, that is Agency for Strategic Initiatives. They're joining us tonight to take part in this discussion. We have Boris with us today from the agency. He's responsible for social innovations and investments. Boris, happy to see you. Thank you. And we have Vladimir Vina with us today. Vladimir, I think in this case it's relevant to introduce you as the person who is responsible for the digital catalog, which gathers a lot of projects which are really social. I mean, they bring a lot of social impact. Sorry, our hosts tell us that Vladimir is not with us yet. He will join us later. So Vladimir, he will say a couple of words about his project, how he managed to make this huge educational project, a lot of information gathered in the form of a catalog. So I think he will share his thoughts and ideas about how we could share information, I mean, maybe in the framework of the same project. Okay, so now hopefully we're on the same page and we can actually shift to our today's discussion. And our today's topic, as you probably know, is... So here is the question. Maybe you've read it already. It may sound quite trivial, but I think it's very important is really the thing we want to discuss. To be or not to be. We mean impact investments in Russia, to be or not to be. Why do we ask this Shakespearean question, to be or not to be? The thing is that we all understand really well that the economic context and the economic situation in any country serves as a kind of a foundation for investment as such. And I think that impact investment market is the most sensitive one. I mean, we all know that everything is changing right now, and I think that investment market is the most sensitive one to how we change, how our values change, how we see the future. I will say just a couple of words about what we mean by impact investment. I mean the investment context of it. I will explain it with very simple words. We mean that the investments will not only bring a return on the money, but the invested money will also bring a kind of an impact. By that, we mean that the project also solves a social issue. So the projects that really help the society, for example, in the framework of the UN Global Network, the sustainability goals, or a more kind of national approach, I mean the national change in the society. Now I'm happy to pass the mic to Tatiana Burmistrova, and she will share very interesting statistics. The most recent research of quite a big European foundation. They carried out a kind of a deep research that Tatiana will share with us now. Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Tatiana Burmistrova, that is true. And I'm president of the foundation that supports social initiatives towards the change. This is exactly the foundation that hosts today's meeting together with our esteemed partners. And today's event is also supported by the Presidential Grant Foundation. As a foundation, this is the first time that we organize a kind of an international meeting, so it's a big event for us, an international meeting about impact investment. And we think that it's really important that we carry it out on the next day of IPA conference. Our foundation is part of this association, and I couldn't help but share the most recent information with you, the information that was revealed on Monday at this conference. So it is a result of an in-depth research. That was a research of all the UPA members. We also took part in this poll, in this survey. Everybody who's taken part in today's discussion will be able to get our slides. And of course, I would be happy to share more details, but we don't have much time, so I will focus on just a few things. It's really interesting that UPA, for the past few years, emphasize two different kinds of investment: investing for impact and investing with impact. So I wanted to focus on the survey carried out with two types of organizations. One are grant makers, and the other type are investment foundations, the ones that actually invest in projects. And I wanted to draw your attention to a few facts. So if we speak about grant makers, they're organizations that give grants without any return. If we take a look at the spectrum of social organizations, they are to the left here. Social organizations, mostly charity organizations. So these are organizations that will never be financially sustainable. 34% of grants support these organizations precisely. And we can see that the next pool are SPOs with a potentially sustainable business model, 33% more. And finally, we see SPOs with a proven financially sustainable business model, under 30% of the grant money. And as for traditional business, 1%. The next slide, please. So here it is. When the respondents were asked about the support, almost all organizations who provide grants, they are ready also to provide non-financial support, NFS. But here we can see that NFS completely coincides with what impact foundations do: strategic support, support with IMM, and support with fundraising. The next slide, please. In a nutshell, so you can see here that mostly these organizations are in Western Europe, and if we look at the Central and Eastern Europe, 2% only. This situation is very different if we look at the same statistics, but for impact investment funds. For impact investment, it would be different. Then for Western Europe, it would be 72%, and for our territory, Russian, Central, and Eastern Europe, 0.5%. Just a couple more words, and I will pass over the mic. The next slide, please. The most interesting thing. The next slide, please. Please ignore this one. So here you are. If you look at how impact foundations invest their money, then you will see that 80%, the vast majority of the money invested by the impact foundations, goes into SPOs that have a proven financially sustainable business model, and 14% goes for traditional businesses. And the final slide. So here on the slide, you can see the size of the investment, and this is another topic for discussion. Maybe we will go back to it when we discuss our cases, but I just wanted to emphasize one point about financial support. I think it's very important for those who watch our today's broadcast. Then the next slide, please. Here it is. So here we see that non-financial support or intervention into management of the organization here is much higher than for just grants. And it's very important that this is not just strategic support with IMM and support with fundraising, but it's also, which is very important, governance support. So that's a kind of an intervention into management. This is a dramatic difference which we can see compared to the organizations that give out grants. Again, I have a lot more information, but unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. We will share this document with you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Люба, микрофон у вас. Любовь Шерышева.
Любовь Шерышева, you have the floor. Tatiana, thank you so much. I think coming from the information in the last slide, you could say that in Europe, there is a lion's share of impact funds, and there are a lot of social entrepreneurs who can be happy to use them. But now, as soon as we begin to speak about Europe, I'm going to give the floor to Luca. Luca, could you please tell us why do you think geography looks this way? And for you, as a professional financier, are you interested in impact investments? So why impact investments exist in Europe?
You have your mic switched off. Please switch on.
Люке нужно сказать, чтобы он включил звук.
Luca, could you please switch on your microphone?
Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm Luca. I'm based in Milano. I run a family office called Rancilio Cube. You can see some picture here. My family, we have an industrial background. We stayed for more than 90 years in the business of espresso machine. Now here you can see the first espresso machine that my grandfather Roberto created in 1927, La Regina, the Queen. And from that moment, it was a long journey in the industry of espresso for, as I said, for 3 generations. Myself personally, after my father died in the 90s, I managed the Rancilio company. So I'm an old economy entrepreneur, something made of metal and a very Italian niche. In 2013, as you can see from this page, we sold the Rancilio group, the Rancilio espresso machine, and my family established Rancilio Cube to do a family office activity. So basically to invest. We are not, as you can imagine from the liquid market, we are not liquid asset managers. We are entrepreneurs. So for us it was quite normal, quite easy to go again, be interested in investing in venture capital, as they said, and in companies they have an impact. In this page, you can see for us is a journey. I mean that restarting again in 2013, of course, starting from the angle of investing and no more to producing a product, was quite easy to go looking for opportunities, as I said, in the venture space and in the impact one. We have at this moment more than 60 direct investment, we call it direct, mostly in the US, mostly in Europe, and 29 funds. A lot of them are also impact funds, like for example, Triodos Bank in the Netherlands. We pick it up to give a short description to you, some of our direct investment. I will focus 2 of these. One is also present, Tridon from Florence, so Federico will tell you something more in the following, in the meeting. But I will focus Prodigy, you can see in the page, Prodigy, that is an education platform that allows people from all over the world, students, cross-border students, to go studying in the best education opportunity in the best university in the world. And this is exactly a space I want you to see, and also to answer to the question why we are interested in investing in impact. Today, a student, a cross-border student that doesn't have a credit score that passed the border and wants to, for example, study in the US or in foreign country, from Italy to UK, for example, for him it's impossible to get a credit line, because every bank has a kind of approach, local, geographically based in his own country. And Prodigy had the idea to finance that students, the best students, that they want to do an MBA, for example, in university like Oxford, giving the possibility to repay back the debit during their career. Prodigy is an example of our strategy and our paradigm. I mean, for us to invest in impact as professional investor is not something, I would say, part of the game. It's the game, because looking for sustainability, looking for a new approach is the only way also to match the possibility to create a profit. If you go on our website, on ranciliocube.com, you see a statement called, "We believe in the profit of change." What I mean, that maybe this is the time in which between philanthropy and the profit and the profit itself, there is something in the middle. There is something who is leading our action as an entrepreneur and also as a consumer. So everyone, in my view, in our view, is going to go in that direction to consume, to product, but also on the other side to have a sustainable approach to the planet, but in general. So that's our only way to invest and to be investor from one side, but also on the other side to have an impact.
Люка, спасибо большое, но я все-таки еще раз задам.
Thank you very much. But still, I would like to ask you why you, as a professional investor, are interested in impact investments. I heard the consumer likes it. That's good. But then why you, as a professional investor, wanted suddenly to invest in impact? So I wanted to hear your motivation. Would you please share it? Because you could invest in other instruments that could also be attractive to consumers. Why impact investments?
Yeah, because if you think about a new generation coming, a new group of consumer, if you think about the moment that the planet is living, not only from the I would say the environment side, but to taking care of a larger group of people, to my opinion, no one can do an investment strategy without taking care of what is giving an impact, a sustainable approach, an impact approach. Okay, so in a certain way, this would be not something ancillary, but would be the only model to pursue to make a profit. I'll make you an example very simple, okay? If you have to invest in a company today in the automotive space, would you think to invest in the oil system? No, I don't want to talk about brand like Italians, for example. No, okay, we are that good to make cars, to make it with that brand. But you will invest with something with an engine or an oil, or on the other side, it's very clear now, in an electric vehicle that both saving the planet, saving your wallet because you're not spending money for the oil, and also to have a growing approach in terms of number. In our strategy, in our point of view, recycling, using what is already in the planet, not wasting, is the only way to invest and to create also a profit today and also tomorrow.
Люка, и можно еще один провокационный вопрос. А как же быть?
Вот one more provocational question. Okay. How do we choose between investing in something that is profitable? For instance, if you invest in electric cars, your profit might come later. But if you invest in gasoline industries, the profit comes much faster. So how do you choose where to invest, where the investment come after, or the profits come after a longer period, or where they come faster?
Lyubov, unfortunately for me, I was not an early investor in Tesla. But would you prefer to be an early investor in Tesla, I mean 10, 15 years ago, or today to invest in an oil company if is creating, I don't want to make names of brands, but the best new car with oil and engine. And all the model that we are pursuing, Freedom is one of these, and Federico will tell you later, is clearly putting in the middle a sustainable approach, an impact approach, but giving us also a profit. So in a long term, medium term, but not that medium, not the long term distance, I don't think people will really see the difference. People will only, maybe it's today like this, already, if you think about a new generation, to something is good for them, for the planet. Make you another example. No, we were a small investor in impossible food, in alternative protein. Okay, and we did good money with impossible food. Alternative food is also another space in which everyone is addressing interested. No, so more consumers are going in the direction to save, to preserve animals, not just because they want to preserve the animal, because also for their health, that's the only way to behave. No? So if you were putting in the middle a consciousness about how the future is changing, and maybe with COVID we discover that, okay, we are different in the world, but we are not that different. No? And this consciousness is coming to me every day, every minute. No, for us, this is the only way also to pursue an investment strategy.
Люка, спасибо огромное. Я сейчас услышала, коллеги, очень важную...
Thank you very much. I heard a very interesting thought from Luca, and I want you to pay attention to it. So what he's saying, where the consumer goes, that's the place where the investors go. And I think maybe this is one of the stories that can help the investment market to grow and to develop, because consumers vote with their money and they help the investor, they show the investor where they should go, because otherwise they won't have the profit. Luca, thank you very much. And now I'd like to give the floor to Federico. Federico, your project was the object of impact investments. So could you please tell us how difficult it was for you to get the investment? How did you find your investor? And what happens after you met your investor and the investment began to work for the project? So you have the floor.
Yeah, good afternoon to all of you, and thank you again for the invitation. Well, I'm Federico. I'm the founder and president of Tridom. We have founded Tridom 10 years ago in 2010 with the of creating that allows and corporation to plant trees, to finance the plantation of trees and follow the growth online in a community, and directly supporting farmers and their community all over the world. Our goal is to become the global landmark platform for planting trees, and in our mission, our idea, our pillar is to create a new kind of tree. First of all, a transparent project and a communicable project. So as you can see in the slide, every single trees that we plant is geolocalized, photographed one by one, linked to a consumer or a corporation, and visible in our platform. So basically users online can connect to our website, adopt or give a tree to loved ones. And also corporation can build the forest with us, plant trees, and support corporate social responsibility program, but also green marketing campaign. Our impact, as you can see in the next slide, is that until now we have planted more than 1 million trees, supporting more than 70,000 farmers and absorbing more than 3,700 tons of CO2. As I said, we start from the tree, so we support farmers mainly in Africa, South America, and Asia that want to plant trees, but also we aim to bring social benefit in our project, because the farmers own the land, they own the trees and they own the fruit. So in the mid-long term, in the mid-long period, they can harvest the fruit, because we plant also fruit tree, and they can use for their food security, but also they can sell the extra production of fruit in local market. So having also an economic impact and creating micro entrepreneurship in poor area of the world. Looking at our growth, we have received a grant in 2014 from Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, and with this money, with this first money, we start hiring people, creating our web community, and thanks to this grant, we also start to promote freedom in a more serious way, and thanks also to this grant, we have reached the cash positive in 2018. But before reaching the cash positive, thanks to Luca, I met Luca in 2016. He loved the idea of planting trees in a minute. And he was very surprised when he recognized the number and the growth we were having, and that we can plant trees, but also having a cash positive. So being a social business with positive numbers. So we share a plan to spread the freedom first in Europe and in America and Asia to follow, and also to develop and promote more and more freedom. So starting from this idea, now we are already active in all European market. We are about doubling our revenue years to years, and I think that looking also at the slide we have seen regarding the business model and how the company works, I think that at the beginning in 2010 there was not a lot of money for startup in Italy. So me and the other co-founder, we were always trying to create a business model that can be positive in terms of revenue and in terms of profit. So try to create a social business that even without putting a lot of money in everyday activities, it can work. So this probably was a disadvantage at the beginning, because we have no money, but then it helps us a lot to develop the company. As you can see in the slide right now, just to finish, we work with more than 2,900 corporations. We have a community of users of about 500,000, mainly in Germany. And the good and the positive is that people love freedom. And as you can see, 95% of people have already recommended us to others, create a positive word of mouth. So I think, of course, feel free to ask. I'm here to answer all your questions. And thank you again.
Federico, thank you very much. The only thing I wanted to ask you is this. Do we get it right that your project initially received a grant that you used to develop the project with, and that was the only funding that was accessible and that's accessible now? Or did you have some period in the history when you understood that apart from impact, you also have a chance to produce revenue for investors? You were looking for investors, or you didn't look for investors, just the foundation?
No, well, basically at the beginning we were always thinking to try to make revenue, but also having a support from grants to develop the company and to run research and development activity, especially also to create new part of the project. So it was an external help to run a little bit more, I would say. Then in 2017, when we were already a company, as I said, we raised money from a group of impact investor with Luca Rancilio as an impact investor. We raised 2.2 million euros to further develop activity in Europe that, of course, require bigger investment.
Federico, and as for this impact investment that you got from Luca, was it an investment into capital or was it a kind of a structured loan? So what was the form of the investment? We are just wondering, because I mean, impact investments can take different forms. So we're just curious which path you decided to follow. Maybe Luca can say that.
Yeah, of course.
Lyubov, I think that I'm an equity guy. All my life, I was shareholder of something. So when I met Federico and the Freedom opportunity, that, as he said, was already a company, so not just an idea, validated already also from people, a corporation. They started planting trees with them. For me, I would like to invest and enter in the equity. And I want also you to see the angle that, of course, is an equity investment, so the structure is equity, but company, that stage, that situation, you have to think also to participate to a project in many ways, no? Also as an entrepreneur myself, in which I don't have for sure the vision, the skill, the creativity of Federico and people there at Freedom. But maybe I can bring my experience also as an old entrepreneur to them to scale and to do it in a better way. I hope Federico will agree with what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree, especially when something happens in a company, in a startup phase, there's always something that you never experience, and of course, having Luca in as a board member and as a lead investor, he was always available to give me some advisor, and most of the issue that is happening now to Freedom, Luca has already experienced in his past life as an entrepreneur, and so it was really an amazing a friend before an investor, I would say.
Thank you very much, Federico. Thank you very much, Luca. This is a great case, really. Luca, being a professional investor, prefers impact investment related to equity. So by bringing money, Luca also says that apart from money, he would like to bring his experience into the project, which business-wise is really huge. And in the framework of our projects, when we think social projects, it's important not just to find investors, but it's also very important to get business expertise, to get help from people who know more. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for confirming our hypothesis. It's great that we are thinking in the same vein, in the same direction. So it's great that you're showing it in practice, what they're thinking about. We also believe that this kind of double role of an investor on the one hand gives money, on the other hand brings business expertise, and we think that this double role can move mountains, really. Thank you very much. I'm ready to turn to our listeners. If you have any questions, please let us know. We will be happy to answer your questions. But I think it is actually time to switch to the Russian case study, which we wanted to analyze today. So now we will share our Russian experience with our Italian colleagues. Interesting for you too, because I mean, different countries are really different. So our organizers say that there are no questions yet. So we are switching to impact investments, which are happening on the Russian markets. And if you allow, I will say a couple of introductory words here. So as for impact investment in Russia, I think we are just at the beginning of this journey. We are a country which, of course, understands that without well thought through strategic development, no future is possible. At the same time, many businessmen, entrepreneurs in Russia have this kind of aggressive experience of just making money, and our investment society, our investment community, is very conservative still, and what they want is just return on their profit, short term, as fast as possible. And this focus of attention is moving really slowly. So we are trying to think a bit more long term. We want our investors to take into account the social impact too of the project. Hopefully, in Russia, this topic will become more popular with just a little bit of time. Russia is a huge country. We have a huge heritage, and I mean, our Italian colleagues maybe know a little bit of the Russian culture, and historically, we are very prone to good deeds, I think. And if we say impact investment or social projects, this is mostly about doing good things. I'm very happy to pass the mic to Nikita. So Nikita, please tell us about your project and the path, the journey you traveled before you were invested in, and who were the impact investors who believed in your project, and how did this interaction happen with them? And also, what was the form of the investment? Was it equity investment or any other form? I'm very happy to pass you the mic.
Всем добрый день. Спасибо
Hello,
за
everyone. Thank you for a very warm welcome. It was really interesting to hear the colleagues from Italy. Thank you so much for sharing. So starting to talk about our company, I should notice that our company has dealt with recycling from the beginning. We were somehow touched by the lack of any recycling system in our country. Of course, it was more or less like the volunteer service at the beginning, but later we understood that if we don't make profits, the project won't work, because the project has to be economically sustainable. Otherwise, it will not reach the scale it needs to have an impact. I hope I'm not speaking too fast. Nikita, it's great. Everything is fine. So for the first 3 years, we were looking for different ideas and business models. So we had our first losses. We didn't make any money, but slowly but steadily, we managed to find an economically viable economic model that allowed us to work on the market of recycling. So today, our company is working on something like Uber for corporate recycling. We are creating a marketplace where different clients, retail, business, or construction companies, meet recycling companies. We have a mobile app that allows a driver who has a van or something like that, or a lorry, to find a drop-off point where they collect waste and they bring it to the recycling stations. We sort of implemented the Uber principle in recycling, and that allowed our company to work with clients who have very little waste. For instance, the small shops or the small restaurants, because they don't produce a lot of cardboard, and usually it's difficult for them to find the way to recycle. So using the Uberator, they managed to reach the market and to reach the recycling stations. And I think that is very much in line with the current trends. So let's move on. Today, we have over 3,000 active clients, 15,000 orders per month, over 300 drivers work for us. They use our mobile app, and about 2,000 tons of waste is sent to recycling. For our foreign colleagues, well, I think they will be able to find some international companies in the list. You see Leroy Merlin, there is Papa John's, but other players are local. There is DIY, the internet shops, and other shops. There are a lot of quite big brands who work with us and they trust us in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, and in other regions in Russia. We grow quite steadily. The scaling is about 2-3 times per each quarter of the year. Today, we occupy 0.5% of the market in Russia, but we're growing very, very fast. A couple of screenshots from our mobile apps, so you can go over it very quick. This is the cabinet of the client. This is our internal logistics system and payment systems. So speaking about investment capital and what role it played, I think it would be correct to say that at the beginning, we worked without investments for 3 years. We tried to elaborate certain expertise in the area. And after this 3 years passed, we tried to work with schools and to work in different regions to gather a team. And then we were able to apply for investments, to develop the company and to bring it to other segments, so that we didn't work only with schools, but with companies as well, because retail is a lot more popular and they need the service a lot more. And that was the time when we attracted first investments. Those were not even impact investors, they were, let's say, usual investors. But yet there was an interest from those investors who were more aware of the current trends.
Но при этом у нас инвестиции они позволили как бы
So
начать
now again, more investments helped us to elaborate a technical product that would help us to work with different organizations and companies, to develop faster, to hire more, to build up our team, to test more and more hypotheses. For the past 3 years, we've had a number of rounds of attracting investments. And yes, we met a real impact investor here in Russia. They are looking for companies that make social impact. They have invested in over 20 companies, mostly in the sphere of education, because for many people, that is the area that is associated with social change. But they liked our project too. It's a project of a very well-known banker in Russia. His team works with us. We discuss social change, the goals and values of our organization. They help us with frameworks. They help us to organize the work of our organization to make it more profitable and at the same time more comfortable for the people who work in it. Most people who work for our company don't work for impact, but some of them do. And that is, for me, the only way to keep people motivated to speak about the impact the company makes. Drawing a conclusion, I should say that our fundraising experience is quite difficult because in Russia, there are not too many investors who are interested in making an impact. I think I talked to a lot of investors in Russia, and there are very few impact investors. 9 out of 10 meetings, for instance, I was rejected because I told people that we worked in Russia and we dealt with recycling. This is something very unpopular, very uncommon in Russia. Since it is something people are not familiar with, and also people think that the market of recycling is criminal, but I would say that it is not that bad in Russia at all. And there is a legal space to work within. But yes, impact investment is important. A lot of attention should be paid to it. For a startup, it would be easy to find 500,000 rubles to begin, but those are grants and programs, but there are very, very few impact investors per se, because people think about some other things, not about some social change or environmental change. But let's hope that our investments community will finally be able to see how impact investment could work. And I would say that, of course, for the company and for the people who work with it, impact is something that helps to motivate. And I think for investors as well. But yet, the team is the most important. So here, I think I'll break. Nikita, thank you very much. I have a couple of questions to you. Let's speak about your investment story. So you say that first investors were, who were they? They were business angels. They were physical entities or who wanted to give you money. Who were they? Who were your first investors? So that we have an idea of how those investors look in Russia. How did you present yourself? Did you present yourself as a business model that can be profitable? Or still you said that you wanted to bring not only profit, but social impact? So tell us more about it. So who were your first investors? Tell me the beginning of your story. Yes, the fund. There were no private investors. There was a fund. We worked with an interesting fund at the beginning. Is it the direct investment fund or a venture fund? It was venture fund. Now it's a direct investment fund. So it was a venture story, you want to say? They invested in the technology area, right? Because you made an application. So that was the story you brought to them? Yes, exactly. And then later on, you spoke about impact because it was motivating your team, and then it was something that your investor also found out about. Yes, that's how it was. So tell us, when you began to discuss the deal, did they speak about a private equity fund? So yes, that was an equity story. Were you ready for them to share with your investors? Was it difficult for you, or was it easy? The first experience that we had, I wouldn't say that it was an easy and wonderful, because when you work with venture funds, they are, yes, and then also a new partnership, when you take money, it's always stressful, especially when you do it for the first time. And then, no, it wasn't such a big deal. Everything is very logical. You can develop the company for 100 years and not pay any returns, or you can draw some partners who can give you resources that you don't have, and you do it together with them and do it a lot much faster. So I think there are certain things that you need to take into account, and this is what you need to understand. What does this partner bring to you? Does he help you to grow faster and to move towards your goals? So usually, if you manage to collaborate, the deal is good. But then if you can't find the common ground, then we have to reject the deal. Of course, there were investors who seemed unfair to us. There are always discussions, and everybody wants to have the benefit for themselves. So I think that's the story. Thank you, Nikita. So your team, when you wanted to attract investors, was it your personal decision as a founder, or was it a collective decision? How did your team feel?
Ну, так как я все-таки не один, в команде. У меня есть еще два
Well, of course,
кофаундера.
I'm not alone. I have two co-founders in our team.
Да, мы как-то коллегиально принимаем такие
So
решения.
normally we take all the decisions together. We make them
Но
together.
в целом все, ну тут же, как сказать, тут же все логично, реально.
I mean, it's all pretty logical, right?
Тратить эти ресурсы, но ты будешь расти там в 10 раз дольше.
You are welcome not to take these resources, but it will take you 10 times longer to grow. So when it's mutually
Ну, в основном этим
beneficial, then the decision is clear. Mostly, I'm responsible for that, but as for big questions, we discuss them together. So the team felt comfortable. You didn't have any arguments or contradictions. Maybe it's better to go slower, but with the partners, everybody agreed it was better with the partners.
сами этим всем занимались.
Yeah, before that, for 3 years, we did it on our own. Well, there are advantages to that, but there are disadvantages. You move very slowly, and we decided to try to move faster. Nikita, when Luca and Federico discussed their experience, the case is that together with equity also came mentorship and business support. Was it the same for you? Or was it just the investment money and the partner said, okay, guys, it's beautiful, let's work together, but I want only to work with the money. I don't want to deal with your governance.
Как правило,
Normally,
похожая ситуация, как была у
normally the situation is similar to
помимо инвестиций,
what Luca said. And
то есть люди приносят,
apart from the investment, all our partners also brought
ну, конечно, всегда ценно,
their expertise. And of course, it's always extremely valuable,
не докапывается там.
but it's never like they are critical of us or they are trying to dig into what we do. No,
Нам управлять компанией, и мы пока с такими не,
we
считаем, что нам это
don't work with the people who want to take over the governance of our company. Maybe in the future it will change, but now we take it as counseling. So we come to our partners and get
там разные
feedback from them or get advice from them.
разные сильные стороны, кто-то там в одном разбирается, кто-то в другом, у кого-то
They all have different strengths. Some of them have connections in particular
и
communities. So we just turn to them for help. And these people, I mean, it's for their profit to help us, right? They invested money into us, so they're always happy to help. Okay, perfect. So it was also a kind of a combined double role of the investors. Exactly. Okay, since we are now discussing a Russian case, I heard from your story that it's true that the investors are few. And the investors saw you first and foremost as just an IT project, not as a socially impactful project. As for now, and you are in the community and you understand what is happening, do you think anything has changed or is it the same? I mean, if you now try to go for the next round, if you can scale internationally, you will have potential for international scaling. So, I mean, why don't you go to the next round for a bigger check? You can show that the model is checked on the Russian market, it's sustainable. We want another round to go international. So how do you think investors would react? Do you think their reaction could be different?
продолжаем этим заниматься и сейчас. То есть это такой процесс,
We are still working.
не то что бесконечный, но
This is not an internal process, but it's a continuous process, to say so. I mean, different kinds of investment is needed on different stages. I can't say that I noticed any changes really. I mean, a lot of people talk about that. And once again, I'll tell you, it's very easy to get a grant to do something. And it's great that this opportunity exists. But then there is a big gap. I think that in Russia, there are no more than 10 investors who take the social impact to heart. This is my experience when I went around all the markets offering our partnership. So I don't notice any changes, and I can't see any new people on the market, really. Okay, got you. Thank you very much, Nikita. It's great that you also understand the situation from the inside. Federico said that the impact investment was more than $2 million. So what about you? Can you give us the approximate amount at least? Well, at the beginning, that was around $100,000 or $200,000 only. And now the last time. No, sorry, I can't disclose this information. Yeah, as for the most recent round, I can't disclose this information. Okay, got you. We won't force you to disclose NDAs. Okay, thank you very much. Dear colleagues, it's question and answers time. So if there are any questions from the audience, we can start with them. My first question is the following. It's a question from one of our listeners. Could you please tell us which areas in Russia are good for impact investment? So I don't think we can address this question to our Italian colleagues. Maybe we can try to answer this question because we know the Russian market a bit better. So I must say that there is no specific area which is good for impact investment. I mean, any project can be considered for impact investment. There are stereotypical things, of course, education, medicine, something related to microfinancing, something related to agricultural projects. But actually, in every area, in every industry, you can try doing something which will be socially impactful. So, I mean, there is no any rigid structure that this industry can be financed by impact investment, but not this one. So I don't think there is any universal solution here or answer. Everything depends on the project per se. I will give you an example. So if you think of an educational project, your project may be a very classical one. I mean, a business school with no real social impact. Well, I mean, somehow in a non-direct manner, as for Nikita, for example, he has a high-tech IT project, but it has a social aspect to it, a clear social aspect to it. So I would analyze it from the point of view that investment can produce revenue or return on investment, and it can also produce a social impact. I mean, classically thinking, when you solve a relevant problem for the community, for example, in the framework of sustainability goals. Here is another question, and maybe our Italian colleagues can help us here. Could you please quote any global banks give credits for impact projects? So it's about giving credits to projects who are aiming for social impact. So maybe Luca knows something. He has a huge experience in finance and investment. I mean, if we take Danone, it's a corporate thing, right? But maybe, Luca, you know some other projects. So other cases when banks credit impact investment as such.
Well, the example I did it before, Prodigy started from some private loan from alumni of INSEAD, became big, and when we started in 2016, Credit Suisse created the first note. So was debt. Some families, my family was one of these, they subscribed. Now Prodigy has facility from Goldman Sachs, HSBC, Credit Suisse, many banks. They give credit facility with which they finance cross-border students. From Nigeria, they can go to Oxford to study. It depends, no, how we see if we see the angle of social, and that's my opinion, but maybe I'm wrong, no? Something that is not making revenues is just for, no, without a closing the cycle, okay, that's not interesting for banks, for investor, or maybe it's interesting only for a philanthropy approach. But if it's closing angle, like Prodigy is doing, no, people, they pay working students, they pay back. This is interesting more and more for what we call it impact investor.
Люка, спасибо большое. Да, но здесь,
Luca,
наверное,
thank you very much. That's true. But I think the question is, do banks have any special crediting system for social impact projects? I don't really know any case studies like that.
Well, there are banks, they only do impact. Triodos Bank in the Netherlands, no, they only do microfinance. Blue Orchard in Switzerland, they only do microfinance. It means they finance some structure, for example, they give credit, no, for people to start a business, to solve a problem. But again, no, you have to think there are many institutions in Europe, Credit Suisse itself, UBS, Blue Orchard, as I say, Triodos Bank, Responsibility. There is a big institution in Switzerland called Responsibility. Of course, you have to think that this social, again, no? I don't want to escape from the question, but as to close the circle. No? What Nikita is doing, for me, is very understandable and very clear there is a need. No? The question mark is only, is there is someone wants to pay for these services, public or private, doesn't matter. No? But if someone, I'm checking the website, I'm sorry, it's in Russian, so I had to translate it in English. But now it's more clear. No? If someone is paying for the services doing, and is doing something that is sustainable from one side, but also making revenues from the other side. Of course, from private people to institutional like banks, someone would like to finance it. Okay?
спасибо, да, коллеги.
Yes, thank you very much.
Аудитория, есть же у нас достаточно, вот где-то, наверное, эта история с одной из крупнейших корпораций международных.
Alex, you know that we had a story with Danone. I think Luca knows the story very well. They went to Credit Suisse and they began to talk with the bank, and there was an interesting story. Danone said that they were becoming a socially responsible company, and they managed to agree with their investors that if they choose to have an impact in long term, then this is the first case when such a big company got a discount for social impact, and that is something that happened last year. I don't remember how many banks they have, 5 or 6, but that was a big company. So that I think is an inspiring story, and you are satisfied with the answer. We have one more question. Are there cases when Russian entrepreneurs impact investments? Well, no, unfortunately, we don't know about many cases when there are foreign impact investors in Russia. And I think this is not so easy. Well, maybe that is possible. If somebody knows about it, please tell us. And from the point of view of how this can happen, as that regards structuring a deal, there are entrepreneurs that attract venture investors, and that is a common story. There are foreign investors from the United States or maybe from Europe. Well, maybe that could happen through the venture fund, but that was not through an impact investment fund. One more question is, are there any successful examples of impact investment in Russian regions? We have a very good story in Khanty-Mansiysk and Yakutia, which is one of the Russian regions. But I think that in that area, impact investment is one part of the story, and their projects are also supported by the state. And there is also a criteria that there should be certain impact before the company can draw profits. But I think this is one isolated story. I think there is also Web, a company that wants to launch certain regional initiatives, but let's see whether they are successful or not. Can I give you one interesting example? Yes. I talked to one Russian investment fund that attracts capital from abroad, from different institutional investors from the United States and other countries, for them to invest in Russian companies. I'm not going to tell who these people are, but they really thought seriously about impact investments to bring capital from abroad to their fund. They've been telling about it for 2 years, but so far they haven't done anything. But I want to say that there are some serious people who talk about a large impact investment. But that still is understood as a life hack, how to bring foreign money in. So their idea is to bring investments in, and they want to sell it, part of it, as impact investment. Is that correct? Well, yes, but maybe they could share their story with us one day. Colleagues, now we're going to hear our colleague Boris from the Agency of Social Initiatives is going to tell us about how they understand social investment, social impact investments. What is your take on that, Boris? Thank you for giving me the floor. And I think that this is a very important event. So I'm going to tell you more about our agency, and then I'm going to tell you about our approach and share some examples of our projects in Russia. Our agency works with infrastructure. We want to establish communications between society and business. So this is some sort of a communication platform. And we want to work with the Russian regions because they want to develop and they want to have better practices. We have our own forum with its digital platform that seeks to unite people who are socially responsible and wants them to share their projects and exchange ideas. We publish our initiatives and projects that are underway. The expert community helps people to develop better strategy. Now we have 15,000 people on our platform and more than 10,000 people took part in the project. So this platform is one of the instruments that helps us to solve the issue of impact investments. Now in Russia, first we consider social entrepreneurs as the possible driver for social development, but it seems that Russian people do not have enough information. They do not understand the difference between social entrepreneurs and usual business. For our agency, awareness raising is one of the most important areas. Another trend that we are working with is increasing public participation in social sphere. Because today, the state is not paying that much attention to it, and we want to bring more private investors. They begin to invest in social development, in healthcare, and in education, and we want them to have the information they need, and we want them to know that it can be profitable to them. I'm going to upload a PowerPoint, and now I'm going to briefly share some of the examples with you. So some projects we work with are in IT area, because this is something that we need today, and it's a must. There is a project for social entrepreneurship that is organized by the Russian Chamber of Entrepreneurs, and it helps socially oriented, social purpose organizations to provide social services. And they're going to work with responsible suppliers through blockchains. We're building on the platform of commercial chambers in different countries and in different regions. So this is one of the projects. Another project is also the IT platform. It's a crowd aggregator of business models that work in social entrepreneurship. It is organized by the fund Our Future and the Ecosystems Fund. They want to create the digital ecosystem with online services to exchange different ideas, to have franchise, to give out ratings,
No,
to form teams to work in that area. There should be the aggregator of different educational programs and with financial propositions, business. So it's one service that is going to provide access to people who are interested in becoming social entrepreneurs, and it will enable those who want to become social entrepreneurs to learn more about it. The platform should provide them with the instruments that are helpful and with the information. The third project I'm going to tell you about is the cooperation project. It is a platform, platform, and it is supported by the Social Innovation Fund of Flower Watcher. We make projects with people who are interested in bringing social impact. So the more impact there is, the more resources the program requires. So that helps to have the social purpose built within companies. And I think this is an interesting development that could help to cooperate with impact investors. The fourth point I wanted to make is that we work with loans and with awareness raising, so that the different shareholders in the social sphere would know how to interact with each other. The fifth, we have the Club of Social Entrepreneurs, and it is based in Murmansk. They also work with foreign partners. And the last point, something that is something that you can only find in Russia. It's a project in Yekaterinburg. It is one of the priority projects in the region. It helps to cooperate the government with non-profit cooperation, with non-profit organizations, with NGOs, and with companies. There will be offline platforms that are aimed at supporting social entrepreneurs. So you can go to our website, you can take part in our platform, and some of these platforms could be seen as an area for an impact investment. Thank you very much. I believe that all of us understood that the Agency for Social Initiatives can provide you with a source for different projects that could be seen as an area for impact investment. Vladimir Weiner, I'm glad to see you. You couldn't join us at the beginning, but now you're with us and I'm quite happy. This is a person who makes a catalog that tells us about all social entrepreneurs that exist in Russia. Could you please tell us about your project and how do you see the future of impact investment in Russia? You have the floor.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Спасибо, Любовь, рад видеть всех коллег, кого я знаю.
Hello everyone, I'm very happy to see the familiar faces. And it's true that for social entrepreneurship to develop in Russia, we need to go step by step. So we have the legal foundations, but it's very weak, especially its implementation is especially weak in the regions. So there are a lot of examples, but there is no social franchise at all. There are also some campaigns, but there is no movement as such. So I would say that the infrastructure is not developed. We decided back in 2015 that we needed to look at the experience of other countries, for example, the South Korea. We decided to build this book. We issue it every year. We gather at least 100 examples, cases every year of the social companies, social projects that are active in Russia. And around this book, we actually gather a community, which is the most important for us. So social entrepreneurs and those who support social entrepreneurship. So here you can see the quotes and the pictures, the images that we build. So it all starts with smaller seeds, with the sprouts. So our integration in the world history happened in terms of counseling. This is last year's edition. Here you can also see the foundation future towards the change. Impact Help Moscow and our foundation too. The next slide, please. Here is a key thing. We try to demonstrate the social impact of every project. So it's not just the results that we aim to achieve within the year, but it's also the social impact, social and economic impact. So every spread, every page is basically a cut of data which is necessary to make the decision, yes, I want to support this project. You can see QR codes here. They lead to videos that tell the story of this organization. The next slide, please. Here is the website where people can publish their own stories.
Как раз ключевого драйвера социального предпринимательства, это некоммерческая организация. Поэтому у нас как раз
So, as for Russia, we don't have any our website. We don't have any limitations that are there for other foundations. So people are welcome to publish their projects here. As for the percentage of the relevance of their description. So those who have more than 80%, they actually share the story of the social impact. For example, Dobrovorod, as you can see, 97%, and that means that this case will enter our catalog of the current year because they provide the data about their development now. This is what it looks like on the website, and later on we publish it in the paper and PDF version of our catalog. We have different formats for it to spread in both online and offline. This is the financial sustainability model, the direct results for the current year, and also the investments that are expected to be able to develop this project. So we gather information about every project like this. For example, today we'll launch the competition for social startups. And everybody in our database will get an invitation to take part in this competition. You can also find here those you want to support, the projects you want to support. Maybe can't really read, but this is the form you have to fill out. The questions are: what the social impact that you managed to get in a year? How would you describe the social and economic impact of your project? What methods of evaluating the social impact do you use? The next slide, please. Vladimir, sorry, I will have to stop you here. I mean, our today's topic is about impact investment in Russia, and I think our colleagues now have the idea of what you do. But what about your opinion on our topic? What do you think? What do you think will happen on the impact investment market in Russia? A few hypotheses. So what I was sharing was actually an answer to this question. We are creating a condition, at least in the IT field. So this is a platform where you can choose something interesting for you personally. I have a belief that the investment in Russia will grow. I mean, the international support will grow, I think, or we can leverage the experience of international companies that function in Russia. So I feel like there is a foreign kind of experience needed here. Every social project does not work for revenue only. So when we speak about the social impact or maximizing the social good, it's a different thing than the traditional project and the traditional economy. So this is why this experience and this understanding of this experience is Europe-centered. So I think we have to turn to the foreign countries for expertise. We can see IKEA and Leroy Merlin, who are drivers of support that paved the way for social responsibility programs of corporations. There are other endeavors like the Agency for Social Initiatives. I have a hypothesis that if we create the practice of social franchising that could be different from the classical franchising, and it could also become a good element when I understand that maybe I won't get a huge return on my investment, but at least in my local community, in my city or town, I can launch a project that will really matter, that will make a difference, that will create a different life quality for myself, for my children. Then I will get less revenue, but more social goods that I will also be able to use. So this is also an important track for development. Thank you. Okay, my dear colleagues, let me finalize our discussion panel. I think we've had a very interesting lineup, a very interesting range of topics, starting with Luca and his very classical venture investment, supported a project investing into equity showing that these investors exist. And we saw a case that really works, that was initially supported by grants. And then Federica found impact investment from Luca. We also listened to a Russian case which managed to find investment from a venture foundation, then direct investment. We also saw that there are special banks, as Luca shared, that support social entrepreneurs, mostly focusing on the social impact and not on the revenue. We also discussed case studies of huge corporations like Danone, who managed to optimize their portfolio, taking into account the corporate social responsibility that Vladimir also spoke about. And we also discussed the idea of supporting the platforms for impact investment and carrying out information-related and education-related activity. And an important idea was that maybe big business can lead the way. The corporate social responsibility problems can show where to go, and the corporations can also sample and show the possibility. Franchising is also an interesting scenario, but I think if I summarize what we've discussed, in Russia, we are just at the very beginning of the journey, and it all depends on us. And I feel like remembering a phrase from a quite important book, The Petit Prince, The Art of Small Steps. Do you remember that quotation? I think we just have to try and walk the way. And Luca shared the practices that exist in Europe already. The question is how we can implement this experience in Russia. How can we adapt it to our current issues, to the social entrepreneurship in Russia? So if we start with the practical steps, if we do something, the consumers will lead the investors. So, future for Russia. Thank you very much. And I was very happy to see our Italian colleagues. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. Thanks a lot to our Russian colleagues. Hopefully enjoyed our session. And I want to wish you a great evening. And once again, thank you very much for the interesting discussion. Have a great evening. Thank you.